Now that you have an understanding of the organs and the length of the digestive system, we now want to talk about what actually happens during the process of digestion. And we're going to start with the mouth. When you put food into your mouth and you chew, your teeth just cut the food into smaller pieces, and then also they just mix them with the saliva. Now the body produces saliva to help moisten your food, but also because it contains an enzyme that causes the starches to begin breaking down into sugars. So if you look at this, the breaking down into sugars, starches breaking into sugars, is actually a chemical digestion, whereas cutting the food into smaller pieces is a mechanical digestion. After you chew up your food, it forms into a ball called bolus. And that bolus is what you actually swallow. And when you swallow, the food travels down your esophagus, but it doesn't just drop like we think of it doing. It actually gets squeezed down, sort of like squeezing toothpaste out of a tube, one section at a time. That process, or those muscle contractions, are called peristalsis. And that's what actually pushes the swallowed food down into your stomach. So really there's no digestion taking place in your esophagus, it's just a pathway. Now in your stomach, you're probably going to be surprised because most people think that digestion occurs in your stomach. But essentially the stomach is just a sac that is constantly twisting and turning by peristalsis. And it actually is just grinding your food and mixing it with these gastric juices and making it even smaller pieces. The gastric juices are a mixture of acids and enzymes that we'll talk about in a few minutes. But by the time the food leaves the stomach, those pieces are about as small as they're going to get. So after the stomach twist and grind your food, which is mechanical digestion, there's really not more mechanical digestion taking place. Now, those enzymes, those gastric juices, actually mostly kill bacteria, but these enzymes that are in the gastric juices actually starts breaking down proteins into smaller segments called amino acids. So there is a little bit of chemical digestion, but primarily that is physical digestion because of the twisting and the grinding. Once the food leaves the stomach, it is called chyme, C-H-Y-M-E. And the chyme passes into the small intestine, and by this point, by the time the food meets the small intestine, there is no more mechanical digestion taking place. It's broken down as far as it can be. But this is where the chemicals go to work. Their starches are broken down into sugars. Some of you may have heard of a product called insulin. Insulin is involved in using the sugars, but the starches get broken down into sugars. The proteins continue to be broken down into amino acids, and then the big thing that happens in the small intestine is that the lipids get broken down. Now lipids are fats, and your gallbladder, your liver, produces bile, and bile then goes from your gallbladder into your small intestine and allows you to break down fats. Once all of these things are broken down, the nutrients are absorbed through the villi into the bloodstream. So those villi that were mentioned on your notes page the other day are very important in allowing your nutrients to be absorbed. After the food has passed through the small intestine, by the time you get to the end of that 700 centimeters or 7 meters, everything that can be used has been used. All that you've got left now is water and waste, things that your body could not absorb or could not break down. That enters the large intestine, and what happens in the large intestine is that the water is just simply absorbed into the body. The waste gets processed and it is formed into feces, which is the scientific word for poop. And then what happens is everything moves through. The feces is stored in the rectum. until it passes out through the anus. So in the large intestine, really the only physical mechanical digestion that you might have taking place is that the water is absorbed back into the body, and then everything else is just prepared for waste.